oppression, cruel punishment, a sense of being burdened and weighed down. This is what was going on with the people of Israel when they were in Egypt. The great days of Joseph were gone and no longer remembered. Now, the Egyptians only saw the Hebrews as a threat because there were so many of them. But this chapter of the story helps us to see the sovereignty of God. Through the people he would use, the ways he would act, and the manner in which he would show his care, he shows us clearly that he is in control of everything. As chapter 4 begins, we find baby Moses being miraculously saved from his death. Then, through a series of events, Moses leaves his privileged life in the land of Egypt and is forced to flee out into the desert where he will become a shepherd. Well, while he's out in the backside of the desert, Moses meets God, and God reveals a plan that Moses will be a part of. Surely the Lord God does nothing unless he reveals his secret counsel to his servants, the prophets. As Moses is listening, he comes to realize he's part of God's plan, which raises a whole series of questions. Questions like, who am I? But Moses said to God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and that I should bring the sons of Israel out of Egypt? And he said, certainly I will be with you, and this shall be the sign that it is I who have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall worship God at this mountain. I mean, Moses wasn't sure why God had chosen him and why he would be the one that God would want to use. A question like, well, God, who are you? I mean, what will I say when people ask who it is that's calling them to come? Then Moses said to God, behold, I am going to the sons of Israel, and I shall say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you. Now they may say to me, what is his name? What shall I say to them? And God said to Moses, I am who I am. And he said, thus you shall say to the sons of Israel, I am has sent me to you. What if they don't believe me? What if when I bring the message, the people don't believe what I've said? For they may say, the Lord has not appeared to you. And the Lord said to him, what is that in your hand? And he said, a staff. Then he said, throw it on the ground. So he threw it on the ground, and it became a serpent, and Moses fled from it. And maybe Moses' biggest question, what if I mess up? What if I do something wrong and this doesn't come together? Then Moses said to the Lord, please, Lord, I have never been eloquent, neither recently nor in time past, nor since thou hast spoken to thy servant. For I am slow of speech and slow of tongue. And the Lord said to him, who has made man's mouth? Or who makes him dumb or deaf, or seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now then go, and I, even I, will be your mouth, and teach you what you are to say. Now, I'm not sure how much Moses understood all of God's plans, but what we realize is that God can use the unwilling, the unqualified. In fact, God can use anybody he chooses. The very first thing that Moses does backfires. He goes to Pharaoh and says, the God of our people says, let us go. To which Pharaoh replies, I don't know your God, and I'm not letting your people go. In fact, Pharaoh says, you're just trying to be lazy, so I'm going to increase your workload. Well, then the whole nation of Israel that Moses was there to save actually turns on him. To which Moses has one more big question. God, why did you do this? Why? Isn't that the big question we all have for God? We find ourselves in situations that we don't understand. We're not aware of what God is doing in our midst. Death, illness, divorce, financial ruin. Each one of these force us to realize that there is a bigger story that's taking place. And we either have to retreat into our story or commit to learn more about the story. To Moses' question, why did you do this? God says, now watch what I will do. And the next thing we see in the story is this incredible display of God's power. He brings the plagues, blood, flies, gnats, locusts, frogs, darkness, even death. We may say, I wouldn't ask why if I saw God working that way today. Well, God is working today, and he wants to work in your life. I heard a definition about a coincidence, and the coincidence is when God works around us in miraculous ways, but chooses to remain anonymous. I remember a big why time in my life. I became a follower of Christ when I was 17 years old as a freshman in college and began to pursue a relationship with him as best as I understood what that meant. I would graduate college and have a career in education, and then from there God called me into ministry. I had the privilege of serving as a pastor for 10 years when God brought that stage of life to an end. It was a big why. God, why are you doing this? Why is this happening? I've given my life to you to serve you, and yet things hadn't worked out. Well, that's when we left the Illinois area and came and moved to Florida. And during the first year here, I wasn't in ministry. It was a time of reflecting and reassessing and just kind of wondering what God was doing. The question why was asked a lot. A year later, God would show his faithfulness to me and restore me to ministry and give me the opportunity to become involved again. Now, my story is not about what great faith I had, but rather it's about what great faithfulness God has. The story we're reading in the Bible isn't about how great Moses was, but rather about how great God is. From the story of the Exodus, we get a clear sense of the sovereignty of God. He saves a baby from death who will become the hand-picked deliverer of Israel. He breaks the stranglehold grip of a powerful nation that had been bonding his people. Yet there's another side of the story that we read about God as he provides for his people. Like a good shepherd, he guides them through the wilderness. He provides for their needs and he protects them from his enemies. That he does this is not anything unusual, but how he does it, that's another story. Amazingly enough, these people would complain even as they were watching God do some incredible things. Unfortunately, this would become characteristic of this generation that would later die off in the wilderness. In spite of what they saw, they realized that God was proving his sovereignty, his power, his authority, and everything that he did.